Hey guys, hey, how is everybody doing out there? Man, is this craziness ever gonna end? Is this time ever gonna come to an end? Are we ever gonna be able to look back on this situation instead of being in this situation? And this time of just being unsure, you know, wondering why it's happening, how long is it going to last? Reminds me of a very, very cool story in the Bible that I want to share with you today and kind of just use that as hopefully some, just some relief in this time to know that everything comes to an end. COVID-19 is not going to be here for the rest of our lives in this capacity. We're not going to be all shut in our homes for forever. We're going to come back out. We're going to reconnect with friends and family again. We're going to visit our favorite restaurants again. We're going to just enjoy life together again. And so one of the cool stories that kind of really that I remember and have really been just focusing on a lot is the woman who touched the hem of Jesus's garment. And it's just such a powerful story for me because it's a powerful story of just what a long time of uncertainty looks like. And we have two choices in that time of uncertainty. We can boldly proclaim, or we can fall away, and we can just say, "Well, this is it. This is just all that's good." Everybody's done everything that they can. And this is it. But this story in here is just such a powerful story, and I'm going to read it, and I'm going to set it up in context because really, what happens with this woman who touches the hem of Jesus's garment is actually, sandwiched in between two miracles that Jesus had just done. He had just delivered, a man who was possessed by a demon, and how he had this powerful conversation with this demon that was inside this guy. And it was just fascinating how Jesus just spoke plainly to him and told him to leave this guy alone, and immediately he left. I like that word immediately, like we talked last week. When Jesus does something, it's almost immediate. It doesn't feel immediate to us sometimes, but it in God's timing, it is immediately. When God's timing is perfected in it, then it's immediately. And so he just had. This guy was so grateful. He said, "Man, I want to come follow you." And Jesus knew that the man's testimony was going to be more powerful by sending him home and telling people what Jesus had done for him. He was like one of the early missionaries. God did something for him. God gave him a calling and said, "Go out and tell people what I've done for you." And I just feel like that's what a lot of missionaries do. They have been touched by God, and God sends them out to tell people, "Hey, this is what God did for me. He can do it for you." And so he got into a boat. Jesus got into a boat afterwards, and he went across the lake, and he was actually just walking through this crowd. I can't even imagine how immense this crowd was now that was around Jesus. I don't even know how Jesus walked. I think of modern day celebrities, when they are out and about, and the crowds that just gather around these people because they just want to press in. A few years ago, I went to the BMW Classic, and Phil Mickelson is my all-time favorite golfer. I love Lefty to death. I got a KPMG hat. He rolled in the BMW. My buddy Jason was with me. He got out, and I was starstruck. I was like, and Jason's like, "Say something, say something." I couldn't say anything. So Jason behind me said, "Go Lefty." And he tipped his hat, and it was like, oh my gosh, just crazy. But I just think, of all these celebrities, like when he was on the green and he was putting, I mean, people would just try to get as close to the green as they could because they just wanted to be as close as they could to this guy. And that's Phil Mickelson. I can't imagine how close they wanted to get to this guy named Jesus that they'd heard had healed all these people. Some of the people probably came over across the lake that he just witnessed him heal this demon guy, this demon-possessed guy. So I could just imagine hundreds of people just packed around Jesus. And here comes this woman who had this bleeding disorder. I don't know what it was. Doesn't say what it was. It just says it's a bleeding disorder. For 12 years. 12 years. 12 years she went through pain, discomfort, not knowing what was going on, how long it was going to last. You know, probably confined to her home. You know, probably didn't go out in public very much. You know, just bedridden with this thing. But I don't even know how she heard that Jesus was coming. It's not mentioned in the story. It doesn't even mention how far she had to come to be where Jesus is. But one step out of that house was enough to get her healing. One step is all it took. So here's this crowd just packed into Jesus. Packed. I mean, just packed. You know? And probably a lot of them were more in awe of Jesus instead of, wow, this is Jesus. You know, they're like, I got to see this man named Jesus. You know? And they're packed in. Disciples are packed in. They're probably trying to push people out of the way, trying to get them to move so Jesus couldn't get through. You know, and then this guy comes up to him, and his name is Jairus, and he's a leader of the local synagogue. And he came and he fell at Jesus' feet, pleading with him to come home with him. His only daughter, who was about 12, was dying. So here's this guy that's coming and standing in front of Jesus, asking Jesus to heal him, to heal his daughter, because she's dying. And this guy somehow knows that Jesus can save her. You know. Little did this guy know that was pleading with Jesus. Here was this woman who had been suffering for 12 years. I don't even know what kind of physical condition she was at this point. You know. But here she is clawing her way through these guys, through this crowd. Clawing. Climbing over, crawling under, and the closest she could get was to reach out her finger and touch the hem of his garment. Just touched it. And it says immediately. There's that word immediately again. And remember, we've got to remember that our immediately and God's immediately are going to be sometimes decades apart, years apart, you know? And it said immediately the illness she had left. Immediately. Just by reaching up and touching the garment, the hem of his garment. It was crazy. It's just, you know, insane. And uh-oh, I flipped it around. Hey, there we go. Hey, we're back. So anyway, and what happens next is so profound, because here's Jesus, who's God made man in the flesh, knows everything. He knows who touched her. He knows it. But I think the reason he asked this next question is not because he didn't know the answer. It's because he wanted her to boldly proclaim, it was me. You know, because he says, who touched me? Because when she touched him, he felt power come out of him and into this woman and healed her. And he said, who touched me? Jesus asked. Everyone denied it. I didn't do it. Wasn't me. I didn't do it. What? What are you talking about? What? Even Peter said, Master, what a silly question is that? Why did you just ask who touched me? This whole crowd is pressing into you. Everybody's touching you, Jesus. But he knew that there was one in the crowd that touched him with faith, with a deliberate faith, with a deliberate purpose, with a deliberate, I'm going to claim that you can heal me. Even if I can barely touch you, I know that you can do this for me. And Jesus said, nope, somebody deliberately touched me. You know, I think when we come to Jesus and we press in and we have prayer time with him or just community or conversations with him, I think Jesus wants us to be deliberate about that. He wants us to claim it. He wants us to say, yeah, that was me. He wants us to be that guy, I can't remember his name, the guy that wrestled the angel. And he said, I'm not leaving, I'm not letting go until I get my blessing. And that's the kind of deliberateness I think God wants us to boldly proclaim when we come before him, when we reach out for a touch of his hem to heal us in whatever situation we're going through. And when she realized that she couldn't hide and that she was found out, that God found her out, she fell back as she began to tremble and fell in front of him. Here she was thinking, oh boy, here's an all-powerful, angry Jesus. He's mad at me because I touched his hem. And he's mad at me because I didn't ask him to heal me. He's mad at me because I didn't go through this big production of, oh, Jesus, I've been like this for years. Jesus, I did this. I need this. I need that. That's not what Jesus said. It's amazing. And the whole crowd heard her explain why she had touched him and that she had been immediately healed. A word immediately again. Now, here's a bold proclamation Jesus made to her. He said, daughter. He didn't say woman. He didn't say stranger. He didn't say friend. He said daughter. Here's Jesus looking down at what everybody in the crowd thought was a stranger. And Jesus looked down and he sees his daughter. He sees family. He sees his loved one who had just crawled and clawed her way to be healed. She was going to do whatever it took to get through that crowd, to get her healing, and to touch Jesus, whether it worked or not. She knew she had to get to Jesus to get her healing. And she knew that Jesus was going to be there. And what is absolutely amazing to me and gives me eternal hope and just gives me grace for the day and gives me just, when times are tough and things are struggling, these next words that he says is just powerful. He said to her, your faith, not your proclamation, not your endurance, not anything else, your faith has made you well. And then he tells her three powerful words. Go in peace. Oh my gosh. Here's the creator of the universe being just pressed. And here comes a deliberate act of faith. And I think Jesus loves our community. He loves when we come and worship him and gather together with him. But I really think he loves those deliberate moments of faith that we claim. Because we're not saying in our faith, God, I know this is going to happen. We're saying in our faith, God, whatever happens, I know you are the one I need to get to. You are the one that I need beside me in this situation. And I think God was just moved so much by her revelation and her faith in that moment. And it's just great. It's just powerful. Now, let's continue on with the story, because the story gets even, oh my gosh, it just gets even better. So now Jesus has just healed this woman, told her to go in peace. I'm sure the crowd around that Jesus is going, hey, did that really just happen? Really? That really just happened? And so, while he was speaking to her, a messenger from the home of Jairus, the leader of the synagogue, told him, your daughter is dead. There's no use troubling the teacher now. And as we just read before, we can never trouble the teacher. We can never trouble Jesus with our burdens. We can never trouble him with our sorrows and our doubts and our worries, because it's like, Jesus, when that happens, Jesus says to God, hold my crown, because I'm getting ready to do something. And it's just crazy. But Jesus heard what had happened, and he said to Jairus, don't be afraid, just have faith. She will be healed. Now, I could just imagine the crowd going, really? Why are you telling Jairus that everything is okay when his daughter is dead? How many times do we feel in our situations where we feel like that situation in our life is dead? Our marriage is dead. Jobs are dead. Hope is dead. Love is dead. And we're like, okay, Jesus, you say otherwise, but all I see is what's in front of me and around me. But Jesus sees what's ahead of us. Jesus sees what's on further down the road than we do. And Jesus knew that in a few moments, a great miracle was going to happen in this family and in this community. I can guarantee you, after what happens next, this whole community was just, it had to have been changed. You can't come into the presence of Jesus and get a miracle and not be changed. You can't do that. I just don't believe that. When I struggled with cancer for all those months and I got the miracle of healing, it changed me. I knew I was never going to be the same again. I knew that no matter if I struggled in this human world and I struggled in my flesh, I knew where to go from that moment on to get victory in my life. And have I gotten victory in every area of my life? Absolutely not. But like I said, when God's timing isn't perfect, then it's immediate to him. It may not feel immediate to us, but it's immediate to him. And it's just powerful. And when they arrived at the house, Jesus wouldn't let anybody go in. He took Peter, James, John, and the little girl's father and mother. And the house was just filled with people weeping and wailing. I just feel like that house represents the world today. There's so many people just weeping and sad and just fearful and hurting and just, we're so sad and weeping that we don't see Jesus walking in the midst of all this, walking in the midst of our hard times and our trouble. And he said, stop the weeping. She isn't dead. She's only asleep. Now, here's the same crowd that probably just a few moments earlier had just seen Jesus heal the woman, and they began to laugh. They laughed at Jesus. They laughed at what his revelation to them. How many times have I in my own life, I asked God for something, he said, okay, here's the answer, and I've laughed. I'm like, yeah, are you sure about that, God? Are you sure about that? And then when I look back, I'm like, oh my goodness. I can't believe that I doubted that. And it was crazy. So then Jesus took her by the hand and he said in a loud voice, my child, get up. And at that moment, here we go. And at that moment, her life returned and she, what? She didn't kind of go, oh, she didn't do the old Roadrunner earthquake. I'm dating myself here, but when I was a kid, I used to love the Roadrunner and the Coyote. It was just like, man, this guy, He's never going to catch the Roadrunner. But he is just, he is just nonstop. So he tries to this earthquake. He figures if he can make this big earthquake, then he'll somehow be able to catch the Roadrunner. But somehow he ended up swallowing a whole jar of earthquake pills. And at first he's like, cool, everything's good. Then his little toe starts twitching. And then his foot. And then next thing you know, he's like all over the place, just going crazy. And he bounces over and the Roadrunner's standing there and he goes, me. He sticks his tongue out and he takes off. I do remember the one time when they made a special where he actually caught the Roadrunner and he looked and he's like, what do I do now? It's like this whole time I've been pursuing this thing that I could never catch, and all of a sudden I catch it. What do I do now? But it's just crazy. It's just amazing. So she didn't have this earthquake pill moment. He said, at that moment her life returned, and she immediately, there's that word immediately again. And remember, God's immediately isn't going to be the same as our immediately. When we cry out to God, and when we cry out in our hardship and our hurts and our habits and things that we struggle through in life, sometimes it's going to be immediate, sometimes it's not. But just remember, God's immediate is not our immediate. And immediately she stood up. Then Jesus told her, Jesus being practical, give her something to eat. Now I can just imagine people in the house and out the outside going, what? She's alive? What? This little girl, I can't even imagine what Jarius and his wife felt. Here's one moment their life was over. Their daughter was dead. Over. And probably, maybe deep down inside, Jarius was like, well, if you hadn't stopped to heal that woman, I actually asked you first, and you stopped and healed her, maybe Jesus would be alive. Remember when Lazarus died? His sister and Mary said, if you'd have just come earlier, Lazarus wouldn't ever have died. But Jesus, like he said, they were looking at Lazarus's surroundings in the present time, in their moment. But Jesus could see down the road to Lazarus. Jesus already saw Lazarus walking out of that tomb. When we ask for healing and we ask for deliverance, Jesus already sees that happening. He already sees that happening down the road. So he can walk confidently, even when the crowd's mocking him, even when the crowd's laughing, he can walk confidently through that because he knows the end game. He knows the end result. He knows what's going on. So, it's just like in this time of COVID-19 and this time of uncertainty, just remember, God sees down the road. God sees that time when we're going to get back together and we can actually interact and have contact with each other and say, man, how are you doing? And we can have conversations and we can tell of stories of how we got through this, because Jesus sees down the road. It's the only thing that's eternal is God's love for you. That's eternal. And I just want to wrap up with, I love you guys. I hope you guys are doing safe. Happy Mother's Day tomorrow. To all the mothers out there. My mother is in heaven, and I know she's enjoying the presence of the Almighty God. I just, on Mother's Day, I get sad that she's not here, but I get excited knowing where she's at now. And, she got healed. She was the woman that got healed by Jesus, and the immediate wasn't on this side of eternity, but the moment she stepped into glory with Jesus, it was immediate to her then, and it's just, so I just like it when Jesus just says, he likes that word immediately, and it just means just hold on, it's coming. That immediately in your life is coming. That healing is coming. Whatever you need deliverance from, whatever fear you have about this situation is the restoration from that is coming. Restoration in the world, restoration in our own lives, restoration in our families. It's coming. Jesus is faithful in that. He said, I am coming and I'm willing, to heal and to deliver. And we may have to walk through some stuff to get through that, because Jesus loves to help us to learn about ourselves, so that way when we get healed and delivered, we can learn about ourselves. And so with that, I just want to close it and just say, you guys have a great rest of the weekend. Reach out to somebody, say hi, and again, you can always make a stranger a friend, whether online, text, communication, whatever. And don't make a friend a stranger. If this time has drawn you away from people, try to get that community back. Reach out today, tomorrow, in the next few days, and just say, hey, how are you doing? How's life going? Because we're all in this together, and Jesus is still on his throne, and he still loves you, and he still wants the best for all of us, and and that's just his desire, and he desires that relationship with us. He desires that moment when he can turn around and see us and have a conversation with us. So until next week, guys, just remember, we love you here at East to West, and just have a great, 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 wonderful, God-filled, blessed weekend.